another episode of CaughtatPoint Podcast, this being episode number 9. We are very delighted to have a very special guest on the show today, Mr. Mo Zubair, a man as enigmatic as his name, as the work that he does. Remember, Pranay and me are part of a country where the usual cricketing discussion revolves around Team India and cricketing teams from the Sena countries. But the guest we have on our show today is one who started North America's first cricket magazine, the e-magazine called Crick Talk 20, apart from also being a very able podcaster behind the prowess of the MZ show, which he started last year. So Mo Zubair, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us. And
Thank you.
we look forward to interacting with you and to eat your head with a lot, many questions that we have lined up.
Thank you for
Welcome,
having
Mo.
me. It's my
Welcome.
pleasure. Thank you, Pranay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So are you in Vancouver, Canada right now?
Yes, right now I'm in Vancouver, Canada. It's a beautiful
How-
day, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. here. We are enjoying the summer.
Actually,
We
you're
just
enjoying
had-
summer.
Yeah, we
right.
just had a few weeks of heat waves here, but surviving. It's
All
really
right.
fun.
Is that
Welcome
uncommon, Zubair, to have heat waves
Pardon?
at this point? I'm saying, is it uncommon to have heat waves at this point in time? Or is it?
It is summertime, but this year the heat wave was a bit higher, the highest we've had in 20 years. So it was a bit
I heard
uncommon,
about
but
that.
yeah.
At least you're
But
enjoying
it's-
another wave, barring the COVID wave, the heat wave.
Exactly. Now we can come out now. We've been all vaccinated here.
Nice.
Right. So in an era where batsmen are hitting beautiful shots, you have taken your COVID shots.
Exactly.
So that's nice to know. That's nice to know. So Mo, tell me, when did the
Mhm.
fascination with cricket start? And when
Uh-huh.
did it eventually reach to a level where you started your own podcast and also North America's first e-magazine?
Okay, so my very first memory of cricket was basically when my dad brought in a Sports Star magazine that had, I think it was the England series. I was pretty young at that time when Sachin Tendulkar made his debut in '89.
Right.
It was that. So I just remember seeing pictures of Tendulkar with the bat, with the power, with his usual power
remember
bat.
that
I don't
bat,
know
yeah.
if you remember. That's
Yeah.
one of the first bats he used to. Yeah. So he used to, and after that, in 1992, we had the Cricket World Cup, and it was first time televised. I'm originally from Nairobi, so it was first time televised there. So yeah,
Okay.
that's when the fascination actually started coming in. But it was after the 96 World Cup that I fell in love with the game. That is the first time that my dad and my uncle took me to a ground, gave me a red ball, and just told me to throw the balls, have a bat. And that's when it all started. And then, as you know, Kenya beat the West Indies in that World Cup. So it was a big deal for us. And I guess that's when the fascination really started. It's after the 1996 World Cup.
So a big stepping stone in your cricketing association, albeit being a
Mhm.
fan, was the West Indies being thrashed by Kenya. Something
Oh,
which the great Brian Lara also may not have seen coming.
Yeah, because I remember as a kid back then, everybody saying how Kenya will be thrashed. I mean, we at home did not expect Kenya to even reach 50 runs, to be honest, but it happened the other way.
Right.
So, Zubair, is it safe to say that your first memory in cricket was a surprise?
My first memory, you could say that is my first solid memory. But other than that, I did watch cricket here and there, but that is my first solid memory of the 96 World Cup, Kenya versus the West Indies. And I think the whole World Cup from there on.
I think the universe is a very interesting place. It keeps bringing me back to someone who has a West Indian
Exactly,
thing
West
to say.
Indies.
Because I'm a huge fan of the West Indies, whilst Pranay is a
Likewise,
South African
likewise.
fan.
Yeah, I'm also a West Indies fan, but I mean,
Really?
when Kenya
Wow.
beat them, yeah, when Kenya beat them, that was obviously I was actually ecstatic for the Kenya team at that time.
Right. Actually, the team also at that point in time was very strong with players like Martin Suji and Odoyo and
Oh yeah,
Odumbe
or
and all
Dumbes, you
those
had the
guys.
Chikolos, you had Rajabali
Team
who got the
Ticolo.
wicket of
Yeah.
yeah, Chikolo. So it was actually a very strong unit, and it was an upcoming unit. They had actually played for a couple of years together, so that's when they kind of gelled.
Right. So, 1996 World Cup, which was the other team which you were keenly following apart from West Indies and Kenya?
The other
Ever
team in
been drawn to India?
1996, I remember watching all India games. I remember watching all the India games, and also the other team I keenly followed was the Sri Lankans. I mean, Sri Lankan had Sanath Jayasuriya and Ramesh Kalavithana opening the batting, and that was the first taste of T20 that we got before T20.
That's true.
That's a great thing to say.
Yeah, so those two were explosive in that World Cup.
Alu with Rana and
So,
Jayasuriya was
when you were following Sri Lanka, so what was your take on Rana Tunga's captaincy? Were you
Um,
impressed seeing him as captain?
Oh yeah, I mean, what impressed me most was his calmness under the pressure that he was facing at that time. The Sri Lanka versus India game, how he handled the situation in Eden Garden, that is how the leadership should be. He was really calm. He didn't show much emotions, and then going to the final and obviously leading his charges to a famous victory over Australia in Lahore. That was what I liked about him. He was a calm figure in a cup of storm. That's how I would describe his
That's it.
captaincy.
And what did you think about the great Arunda De Silva, the batting icon of the
Oh,
Sri Lankan team?
there's a nice. His batting was just something else. I mean, that was just class. All his shots were placed, classed, silky batting, I would say.
That's well said. Well said. So, have you played cricket for your school team in your college
Um,
level? Anything
I
of that
I
sort?
actually started playing cricket at age 14. I was playing club cricket for my local
Wow,
club. So yeah, I started in Division Two. Our club started Division Two. Then we got promoted, and that's where I did play a lot of club cricket along with a lot of other guys that eventually went on to make the national team.
right, right.
So yeah.
So, Pranay and me have been very curious to know one thing in particular, and
Mm-hmm.
both of us are quite uneducated when it comes to the culture and standard of cricket in the United States. Apart from the fact that I happen to know a
Mm-hmm.
Pakistani women's cricketer. Her name is
Mm-hmm.
Nain Abidi. She happens
Mm-hmm.
to be the first ODI century scorer for the women's team, and now
Mm-hmm.
she's moved based to USA and is soon going to represent the team. But
Mm-hmm.
which players, what is the kind of cricketing exposure that the current team has, and where do you see the USA team right now?
Um, like I'm actually in the Canada side, so I can. I've been following the Canadian cricketers,
Right.
and what I see right now is when I actually first moved into Canada, I never used to see much of cricket. I mean, nobody knew about cricket back then, but in the past couple of years, I see kids taking cricket bats, playing in the parks, and that's a big positive. And one of the main most surprising things that I ever saw here was I saw a bat being sold in a Walmart. Now that is a big deal
Wow.
because
Absolutely.
you have, if you go to the sports section, you're going to get baseball, you're going to get basketball, and you're going to get ice hockey. But just having to see one cricket bat there, that's a step in the right direction. And how Canada is developing right now, they have pretty good youngsters coming up. There is one in particular, one young boy called Nikhil Datta. I think he's one to watch for the future because he's really good in in the game.
Right. Have you already had him
So,
on your show yet?
Uh, I've not yet had the pleasure of having him. I haven't yet had him on the show yet, but I am going to get him soon.
Go on, Pranay.
So Zubair, as you were saying, cricket is evolving in Canada. It's going for the better. Is there any particular role model that the kids really look up to when it comes to the Canadian cricket team?
Any particular role model? I think the team as a whole, the kids just want to represent the country because we've not had that one guy who has. There's only one, I would say. I think maybe John. This is John Davison. I think that the kids would want to emulate. Yeah,
in the past.
yeah, he played.
2003
Exactly.
ODI World Cup, right?
The one again, yeah, and again he made the fastest century against the West Indies.
Yeah.
So what's with you guys
Yeah,
and the
so-
West Indies always being at the receiving end, guys?
I
Like
don't know,
your
man.
first
I mean,
memory
it just
was
happens.
Kenya beating West Indies, then the person that Canada looks up to is a guy who scored the quickest 100 against West Indies.
Actually, Mo had decided long ago he had to disappoint me. So that's a friend doing this to his other friend. Thank you, Mo. I'll never forgive you for life. Just kidding.
Uh, yeah, I mean, the West Indies is a colorful team. It's always there and it always part of history. I mean, whenever the West Indies play, you can expect fireworks. You can remember what Brett White did in the finals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question is, what has he done after that?
After that, I think
It's just about
just
remembering
went
the
downhill.
name, and now we've forgotten the person also.
Exactly, but after, yeah, it's
Well,
unfortunate.
He's playing
But
some amazing club cricket in England, and
yeah,
he's working on his bowling. He's working on the art of swinging the delivery instead of sitting on the swing on which the kids sit school. So he's swinging it both ways, but he's actually doing quite well in England.
I'm going to
Yeah, I
put a
think he
question
settled
to
down.
both Zubair and Dave. Do you see Carlos Brathwaite
Mhm.
making the T20 World Cup team for the West Indies?
Currently,
Yeah. With his club
that
cricket exploits in England, do you see him coming to the United Arab Emirates to play the T20 World Cup?
mm, I think there is a possibility that he can get a call up for that event because having Braithwaite in the team is always a safe option because he's a good all-rounder, good fielder, and you know his batting, what he can do with the batting. But again, it depends entirely on the West Indies selection, what they're going to choose, how they're going to work their team. But I believe that I would give him the chance if I was a selector to come back in the team. Just as sometimes you need that experience in the team because he's been in this situation. So I would give him the chance, and I think the West Indies might put him there. So I'm going to give 50-50. Might not.
What about you, Dave?
I think honestly, learning the Finnish language in a single day is much more easier than understanding some of West Indies team's selection decisions because they never made Darren Bravo play South Africa in the test matches when it was so necessary. They continued with John Campbell against Sri Lanka when that was absolutely unnecessary. So if Carlos Brathwaite makes it to this team, I think it might well be his final World Cup because in the last couple of years, the dynamics of West Indies cricket have specifically started revolving around youth, blooding the youngsters, as Pranay always says. So borrowing a leaf from your diction, Pranay, I think the team has moved on a bit from Carlos Brathwaite, but definitely the man has the huge six hitting potential. With mighty Chris Gale going down the nose diving, as the last 10 T20s have suggested, it may actually be that Gale is part of the squad, for example, and not played, and maybe in one of those games, Brathwaite makes it. But who knows with the West Indies selection, with all due respect.
I must tell you guys, yesterday, this morning, our time, I was seeing the West Indies Australia game. And the way West Indies bowled to get the last 6 wickets of the Australians for barely 19 runs was phenomenal. I mean, they literally pulled the rabbit out of the hat to win to pull out a victory from the jaws of defeat. Kudos to them there. In fact, I must tell you, Zubair, I was messaging Dave in the morning and the guy was fast asleep. And surprisingly, his team was doing so well.
Yeah.
It was truly a refreshing sight. I wish this performance continued.
Yeah, I was rolling away to glory. Mo,
Yeah.
tell me something. How did the MZ show come about? And are there any specific milestones you've set for yourself? Because we are in an age where the number of hits to an articles and the number of subscriber base to a podcast really matter.
Mhm.
So how did this show come about
So,
and where do you see it?
so, so basically, back in January, I was just sitting down and just looking at ESPN Cricket Info, and I thought to myself that there's nothing in Canada that just talks about cricket. So that's when I decided, let me just start off as a small blog, just a few articles here and there, just try to get it out there, get the word out there. And that's when I just started. I didn't really have any sort of goals to initially to start and to make these things happen, but it just started growing. I got the first interview, I got the second interview, and what I did is I think um, I'm the only guy who's interviewed all the female players from South America cricket. So I try to cover
Well
those
done.
guys.
Wow.
Well
So
done.
so and one other girl that I did for who I interviewed, she played. So I did her interview. She kind of got that
Wow.
exposure, and now she told me that she got a call up for the trials for the national team. So those small milestones for me are the main ones because, I do this out of a passion. I don't do it to see that. I don't publish an article so that 2 million to get 2 million people there or something. I just do it for what I feel, and that's when I enjoy it. Because if I do it for the sake of everybody getting the hit there, then I'm not going to enjoy what I'm doing. So mine is just to try to make a difference, put the cricketing word out there. That's what I feel is my main agenda with the website.
Zubair, it's so refreshing to hear that because we at CaughtatPoint also pretty much do that. We bring out our views and opinions in a way that it's in its purest form more than actually going after
Yeah,
views and likes. Because it's always
exactly.
cricket first for us, and it's not entertainment cricket, so to speak. It's
Yeah,
cricket in the purest form.
it's it's from the heart, man. And once you're
Exactly.
doing it from the heart, it's a different feeling because I know when I've played cricket, I've always played it from the heart, and and even when I do the writing, I do it from the heart. I want to get that passion outside. I want people to feel the passion of the game. That's what I want. I mean, it's not about. I don't want to do this as a business sort of thing. I want to do it so people can fall in love with the game. Maybe if one of my article is read by somebody, they might be inspired to follow the game, and who knows where it leads them to.
Your story in Canada and your association with cricket
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of the mythical tale of Pied Piper, who was
Mm-hmm.
playing the beautiful flute, and
That's
his
right.
followers were completely mesmerized following him. And
Uh,
those were rats, and these are real human beings. But it's beautiful to know that you focused on a young girl, and now
mm-hmm.
she got a national call up. Because
Mm-hmm.
in an age where well, it was sad to know that the BCCI in India did not pay the salaries or bonuses
Mm-hmm.
promised to the women's cricketers long time back,
Mm-hmm.
and they held their money for 2 3 years. So it's refreshing to hear that in another part of the world, somebody is also focusing, and rightly so, on
Mm-hmm.
that the compartmentalization of the game, which should no longer be compartmentalized. Because I might sound funny or flimsy, but I
Mm-hmm.
dream of seeing an Elise Perry play in a team with Steven Smith and David Warner, Mithali
Mm-hmm.
Raj in the same team as Virat Kohli. So
Mm-hmm.
so when you have men and women's cricket being so distinct, despite women's cricket actually taking longer strides even before men's cricket really took off, it's surprising to know why we can't have a hybrid of this, because one of the most beautiful sights that have remained that caught my imagination in the pandemic driven 2020 was when
Hmm.
Elise Perry of Australia was bowling to Sachin Tendulkar
Oh yeah,
in the charity match, and the
that's right.
first ball was guided down the leg side for a boundary, but
Hmm.
she was quick and she challenged Tendulkar, and that was a sight. So that, to me as a fan, that's the ultimate vision, where men and
Hmm.
women can play together. But I think we are
Hmm.
sufficiently miles away from that part of the.
Yeah, but at
No,
least there's some steps are being made to probably
Yes,
reach there.
yes, yes.
no, it's funny that you bring that up, Dave. Tennis as a sport has mixed doubles action.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
why is it not possible with cricket? In fact, Zubair, speaking about women's cricket, there's a question that
Hmm.
I love asking all our guests. What do you think about
Hmm.
having a women's IPL? Like you
It
have a
would be
women's Big
perfect.
Bash league, so why not a
It
women's
would
IPL?
it would be perfect because I had a discussion with somebody some time back regarding this. Because if they have the women's IPL, the standard of women's cricket will be uplifted way higher. I mean, there's so many countries that have more women playing. So I'd give you an example. Brazil. We all know Brazil as a soccer crazy country,
Cricket is
but
flourishing there. Roberta
that's the
Avery.
first country. Roberto Avery gave women's a central contract, women's team a central contract. So you see somebody from Brazil playing in the IPL, how big that would be in Brazil. That's going to develop the game because IPL has the power to reach out to the millions, or rather billions of viewers.
And just to add to Mo's point there, Pranay, the lady he's talking about, she's well past her 30s. She's into her mid 30s. Yesterday was a birth anniversary, Roberta Avery. She is somebody who perhaps has the best straight and square drive I've seen in the game from that part of the world. And not to forget cricket flourishing more even in Chile, where the
Oh yeah,
captain, one of the finest people you can meet in the
trust
entire
me.
contingent of women's cricket, is the
Exactly.
captain of Chile women's cricket team. That woman has an
Spot on.
infectious smile. That
Spot
smile
on.
can kill coronavirus. I'm not even kidding you.
Spot on, mate.
Mo, I take pride, and I'm not, you know me as a person, we've been
Exactly.
interacting for a few
Mhm.
years. We were one of the initial websites which covered a full blown story on the Chile women's cricket team.
I remember
Um,
I read that article.
yeah, and
It
she
was
is a
brilliant.
phenomenal human being. She's a musician. She
That's
knows
right.
Jim Morrison. She does all kinds of things, and
Yeah,
she's God's good soul. Yeah.
she's an artist. She does sculpturing and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, man.
There's never a dull moment with her.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
there's no
she's a
arrogance.
sweetheart despite being in Chile.
Yes, well said. And she has zero arrogance, huh? She's not one of those touch me not cricketers who you will not hear back from. She's very down to earth, humble, appreciates, encourages, sees the good in people the way you both gentlemen do.
Exactly.
Except Pranay Rangra does not see anything good with Andrik Nokia's new mustache.
Have you
He,
seen that, Zubair? Have you seen Andrik Nokia's new look? The
No,
ripoff
I
from
haven't
Mitchell
yet seen it.
Johnson. He's grown his mustache. The Mitchell Johnson look that he had in
Oh,
2013.
coming this way?
it's
Coming
coming
down,
this
actually.
way. It's going
Oh yeah.
downwards.
Oh, like David Boom type.
Yeah, David Boone.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Oh man.
You hit the nail on the head,
Oh
David
man.
Boone.
I wouldn't really
Go for
endorse that sort
recommended.
of style, man. That's not a. I wouldn't endorse that style.
Yeah.
So, Zubair, I had another
Hmm.
question. Let me get your point of view on this. Do you think
Hmm.
cricketers these days have become big entertainment stars also?
Yeah, it has. Cricket has kind of evolved into an entertainment sport. So with the start of the T20, cricketers are mostly playing to entertain. Before, if you remember, when you had the 50 over game, you had the first 10 overs, some teams might score 60 odd runs. But since the T20 has come, they want to entertain, they want to hit the biggest sixes, fours, everything. It's all part of an entertainment now. So I feel that cricket, the T20 has evolved the game into more of an entertainment sort of thing, more of a carnival atmosphere. That's my opinion, though.
What do you feel about the off-the-field entertainment that they are offering with Insta stories and the constant
Yeah,
media exposure? Is that a good thing?
I th- I think that's a good thing because the youth are now always on the Snapchats, always on TikTok. So it's a way of tapping into the potential youth who can be a viewer, who can be a cricketer. So yeah, it is. They're doing it. What they do it in not South America, in North America when when you watch basketball games or ice hockey games. It's a similar approach they are taking, and I think I remember before the IPL started. Um, some of the delegates from the IPL went to David Silverman, the then NBA CEO, to take some pointers. So I think they're trying to make it more of how it is in the NBA, NFL, NHL sort of thing to make it more entertaining.
Do you think that takes away from the purity of the game?
If it's the T20, I think it should be the way it is because that's how they wanted to start it. But in the 50 overs, I think 50 overs or Test cricket, I think it's still there. The purity of the game is still there.
Because I think the reason why Pranay asked you this very vital question is that with each passing day, especially in our country, which habitually consumes entertainment left, right, and center, there's a growing dearth of pure cricketing stories. I'm not sure if any young cricket journalist, somebody who's on the desk of a youngster on the desk of a Times of India or a Hindustan Times Sports desk would be aware of Richie Beno or the intricacies of Tony Kozier's work, the broadcasting master that he was. How many youngsters in India, for example, not the purists, not the diehard writers, but how many would be aware of that there was the most stylish batsman before Sangakkara, Lara, and the likes were called stylish, actually hailed from Australia, a guy called Victor Trumper. I was myself not aware of him until I bumped into an article written by the great Gideon Haigh of Australia, who focused on the photographic shot of the century, which is Victor Trumper hitting a ball out of the park and in his familiar pose. So purity is actually it's finding itself being outrun by entertainment stories. For example, it doesn't increase the price of fish in Canada if you get to know where Virat Kohli partied with Anushka last night. But that's a content story today. So at CaughtatPoint, we take not a sly but a direct dig at such stories. It's fun sometimes, but
but
cannot be an article.
Because I think it's more. That's where the T20 has kind of like evolved, and that's what it's causing. It's people want to know the live intricacies of what the players are doing. And you're right that not many people are focusing on the game. They're not focusing on the history of the game as well. I think there are very few historians in the game right now. Somebody like Victor Trumpet, I wouldn't have known about him a few years ago if it wasn't brought out, right?
Guys, speaking about stylish batters of the past, I must urge you guys to see Graham Pollock bat, the South African batter of the
absolute legend
of the pre-apartheid era. He was fantastic, man. I mean, you should just see him on YouTube if you get any videos of him. See him and see Mike Proctor. I mean, they were fantastic. South Africa in that era was truly a team to beat.
Who had nothing to do with Procter and Gamble, right?
Unfortunately, the South Africa had a huge squad that the world missed out. The world missed out a generation of good cricketers because of the apartheid, unfortunately. But I guess it is what
In
it
fact,
is.
your favorite West Indians of the late 70s and the early 80s came to South Africa
Oh
to
yeah,
play
the
The
Rebel
Rebel
tours,
series.
the
the
Rebels team.
Rebel
That's
series.
right.
Yeah, it was. Some of those players never got to play again for the West Indies. And I had one guest on my podcast, Ashley Gray. He actually wrote a book on that, and he did a research and met most of these players. Some of them were living in poverty after that tour. They were just shunned away. Yeah.
That is terrible. That is terrible. That is
Zubair, can I
terrible.
ask you a question about the present South African team? I mean,
Hmm.
so from the time the likes of De Villiers has gone, only to come back
Hmm.
and then go back to retirement again, to
Hmm.
now Temba Bavuma being the captain and the new breed of players. So where do you see the South African team right now?
The South African team, I think it's rebuilding slowly by slowly. So I think maybe in the next two,
I've
three
been
years
hearing
there
that
might
in
be.
the last 3 years.
Yeah,
A
maybe
team
in the
in
next two,
transition.
3 years.
It's been too
It's in.
long to be a team in transition.
I think it would take a bit of time because they've had internal squabbles at the CSA as well in Cricket South
That's
Africa.
right. That's right.
So those are some of the few the politics of the outside the game is affecting the game, their game on the
That's
pitch.
true.
So I
That's
think
true.
if they settle the problems outside, I think they can be able to move forward in a positive manner and become South Africa of old. The South Africa of the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
You know how those teams were.
Yeah. But you'll be happy to know that the off-field politics has subsided to a very large extent. Now they have an
Yeah,
independent board in place, and
Mhm.
the CSA, the entire team is also getting restructured. So they are sort of heading in the right direction. Hopefully, do so.
Yeah. Hopefully
But there's
they
been so
do
much of player
sort of.
exodus right now that the domestic structure is so weak that you don't find that kind of talent that you might see in England or you might see in Australia or you might see in India. In fact, the England team that's playing Pakistan right now is actually, I mean, not to call them a second string team, but they are. But they're still doing wonders. I mean, I was just watching the game
Exactly.
before this podcast started and
Hmm.
they got Pakistan 5 down, man, for less than 100,
Hmm.
chasing some 246 or
248. 248, I
248.
think.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's the
So
depth
yeah.
that there is in their cricketing system, yeah, which unfortunately South Africa lacks. But I would like
Yeah,
to
that's
pose a
a.
question. How is the depth in the West Indies cricket to both of you?
Could you repeat the question, please? I didn't get
I'm
it.
saying, how's the depth in
How
the
is the
West
depth
Indies
of
cricket?
West?
Oh, the depth in West Indies
West
cricket.
Indies, that's
Not
right.
the depth.
Yeah.
And
uh,
we have about 8 minutes left here on the time.
yeah, the depth probably it's looking good, but again, with the West Indies, you just don't understand. They can be going up, then suddenly they go down. So the depth is good, but it depends on the players. Like they might refuse to play for the West Indies if they get better contracts in T20s. You've seen that happen with Chris Gale, with Sunil Narayan, all these other guys. So again, it's all dependent on the players. But I believe there's a lot of potential in the West Indies right now.
There is. They have the likes of youngsters in Kimani Milius and
Oh yeah.
Joshua James. And I'm particularly keen on seeing Kimani Milius, take the West Indian baton forward. He missed out on this year's CPL selection, but I'm sure next year there's something lucrative and more importantly than lucrative, something promising on his career development front that
That's
awaits him.
right.
Uh, Across various generations, name your top five cricketers and why.
Across various generations, I think we start with the West Indian era. We start with Viv Richards because at that time he kind of revolutionized the game. He
Mr.
was the
Nina Gupta, right?
so he was the first superstar of the game. And then I have number two, we have Sachin Tendulkar. Obviously, what he's done with cricket, he's actually popularized it more than anybody else. And then you have the Brian Laras, who basically, being West Indian, I can't make a list without him. And then one other guy that I would say not many people would mention is Maurice Adumbe, for my opinion, of what he did with the Kenya team. And if you look at when he was in the Kenya team, we had success against big nations. But after he got banned, Kenya never had a meaningful run after that. So he was on my number 4. And number 5, who would I put? Wasim Akram.
Excellent choice.
Yeah, those are my top 5.
Right. A final question before we end the show. Unless Pranay, you want to ask something, I wanted to ask one more.
I was hoping you would name a South African Zubair.
Make that AB de Villiers or Jack Callis, please, as the 6th.
Okay, if I make 6th, then I'd go for Herschel Gibbs.
Nice, very nice.
I love Gibbs.
You know, Zubair, you resemble Herschel Gibbs, to be brutally honest. You do.
Yeah, I actually interviewed him last year. Yeah, Gibbs.
Please direct us to him. It would be an honor.
Yeah, Zubair, we would love to have him on our podcast. If you could help us.
Pranay will take him to Goa for a party.
I think there's one other guy that I'll give you his contact, and if you have him, you have all of South Africa.
Please do, yeah. Please do. In fact, I would urge you to.
What is lined up for this year for the MZ show? What kind of guests, what kind of content are you looking to create in what is left of 2021?
So for this year, what I want to get, I don't want to do exclusively all cricketers, because I want to bring in some other people. So I have a few people that are working in Hollywood right now. I want to interview them. And then I have a few mixed martial artists. So it's just a mixture. And I'm trying to get Neil deGrasse Tyson because of his astrophysics. So I want to try to bring in different guests on the show, because to make it a bit more interesting this year.
Right. You also have the freedom to choose from 2 eminent guests who are right now interacting with you. So please.
So what I want to do is I want to actually, like the way you guys are doing it on Zoom, I want to start that, and hopefully I can start with you too on my first.
We would love to be on your podcast. Can you also get Herschel Gibbs that day?
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best, man. But I'll definitely give you the contact of a person that I'm sure you're gonna really enjoy. Pranay is gonna really enjoy. You're gonna eat his head. He's gonna give you all the tidbits of South African cricket, the ones that we missed seeing.
And Pranay, in celebrating his talent, you should actually start by hitting 2 consecutive 6s. Forget 6.
6.
He's done it, guys. Rudy Kurtzen has given it us out. So Mo, it was fantastic to have you on the show.
Likewise, guys. Mo. Likewise.
I mean, if you could, if you could end today's show, subscribe to the CaughtatPoint Podcast, it would be a befitting end to what has been an enthralling episode.
I didn't get the last sentence. The kind of connection broke down.
I'm saying that, Zubair, can you end today's podcast for us, saying that viewers should like, subscribe, share the video? And how has your experience been coming on this podcast?
Yeah, my experience was fantastic on this podcast. And I think anybody who's going to be sharing, liking these videos, subscribing to this channel will be entertained by all what they have on the CaughtatPoint. So I think it's one of the best, most entertaining cricketing podcasts out there right now. So if you guys are watching, make sure to subscribe to CaughtatPoint.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers, Zubair.
You're
We
welcome.
hope to
Nice
see you
having
soon
you.
one day in person.
Likewise,
Yeah.
Pranay.
Yeah.
Keep in
See
touch,
you.
man. This is the first of the many interactions to follow.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you
Bye,
for having
bye,
me.
bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
All right.